Sing for us, boy. Victoria Ashford snapped her fingers twice at the black waiter. You people are so musical. Her diamond-heavy hand waved dismissively. The waiter, Marcus Hayes, 34, server uniform perfectly pressed, stood frozen, champagne bottle midair. Victoria grabbed his wrist, pulled him closer. 200 guests watched. Don't be shy. Her voice dripped honey-coated venom. Earn that tip. Marcus's jaw locked. His free hand gripped the serving tray until his knuckles blanched white. Every eye in Manhattan's Beaumont Club was on him. The choice was simple, brutal. Sing like a circus animal or lose the job that paid for his mother's cancer treatment. But Victoria Ashford had just made a mistake she didn't know yet. Inside his vest pocket, Marcus's fingers brushed something rectangular, a business card from 6 months ago that said, "When you get a real audience, show them who you are." If you'd ever been forced to choose between your dignity and someone you love, what would you do? 3 hours earlier, the kitchen of the Beaumont Club smelled like clarified butter and desperation. Marcus Hayes stood in front of his locker, staring at the contents like they might rearrange themselves into something better. A worn tuxedo hung on the hook dry cleaning so many times the fabric had gone thin at the elbows. Beneath it, a manila folder bulged with medical bills. $47,000. The number had its own weight now, its own gravity. He pulled out his phone. The email was still there. 6 months old, read so many times he'd memorized every word. Dear Mr. Hayes, thank you for your interest in our spring season. Unfortunately, we feel your artistic profile lacks the commercial appeal our patrons expect. We encourage you to explore opportunities in contemporary gospel or community theater. Best regards, Metropolitan Opera Casting. Translation. Not white enough for lead roles. You're too good for this place. Elena Martinez, 43, 15 years serving the Beaumont's elite, stood beside him, holding a tray of canapes. Her eyes held the tired knowing of someone who'd watched talent waste away in service uniforms. Marcus closed the locker. Talent doesn't pay for chemo, Elena. This does. That woman's coming tonight. Victoria Ashford. Elena's voice dropped. Be careful around her. I'm always careful. No. Elena stepped closer. I mean it. Don't let her see you break. She feeds on it. Before Marcus could ask what she meant, the kitchen manager burst through the doors. Front of house in 5. Ashford just pulled up. She wants a receiving line. Outside, a Rolls-Royce Phantom $4 million of British engineering glided to the curb like a shark arriving at a feeding frenzy. Victoria Ashford emerged in a gown that cost more than Marcus's entire year of Juilliard tuition had. Diamonds at her throat, wrists, ears, armor made of money. The valet, kitchen staff, and servers formed a line. Marcus stood third from the entrance, hands clasped behind his back, face carefully neutral. Victoria swept past the first two without acknowledgement. When she reached Marcus, she stopped. Her eyes traveled up his frame slowly, appraising Ly like he was livestock at auction. Finally, some tall help. You'd be wasted in the kitchen. She moved on before he could respond. Inside her entourage followed. 3 women in designer everything, a husband who looked like he'd given up decades ago, and an assistant who typed constantly on her phone with the frantic energy of someone managing a wildfire. Marcus carried champagne through the ballroom as it filled with Manhattan's most protected class. Hedge fund managers, old money families whose fortunes traced back to industries no one mentioned at parties anymore, tech moguls who'd convinced themselves disruption was the same as ethics. Victoria held court at the center table, her voice rising above the classical quartet. Of course, the Brazilian valet was perfect with the car. You people are so good with vehicles, she said it like a compliment, like she couldn't hear how it landed. An hour in, she dropped her purse. It hit the marble with a theatrical clatter. Her eyes found Marcus across the room. She didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Just looked at the purse, then at him, then back at the purse. He walked over, bent down. I picked it up, handed it to her with both hands like it was an offering. Thank you. Her fingers brushed his as she took it. You're so well spoken, too. Where did you learn English so well? Boston, Marcus said flatly. I was born there. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Of course you were. She turned to her table, voice projecting. The help these days is so articulate. It's wonderful. Marcus's hand tightened on his serving tray. He counted to 5 using the breath control he'd learned at Juilliard: intercostal expansion, slow release, and finding the center. By 9 o'clock, the microaggressions had piled up like small cuts. Each one alone meant nothing. Together, they bled. Do you play basketball? You have the build. Is your hair real? Can I touch it? You must be so grateful to work somewhere like this. And through it all, Victoria Ashford watched him with the particular satisfaction of someone who'd found a new toy. In his vest pocket, Marcus's fingers found the business card. 6 months ago, Joanna Carter, associate director at the Metropolitan Opera, had pressed it into his palm after hearing him warm up backstage during a catering gig. If you ever get a real audience, she'd said, show them who you are. Tonight, Marcus was beginning to think, might be that night. He just didn't know the cost yet. 9 o'clock dessert course. The ballroom glittered like the inside of a jewelry box. Victoria Ashford stood, champagne glass raised, cheeks flushed with excellent wine and unchecked power. I want entertainment. The scheduled musician, a Juilliard graduate hired for $800, looked up from his piano, confused. Victoria's eyes swept the room and landed on Marcus, clearing plates near the kitchen doors. Her face lit up like she'd just discovered fire. You, the tall one, she pointed, diamond bracelet flashing. Come here. Marcus set down his tray. I walked toward her table. Every survival instinct he'd developed over 34 years screamed at him to be invisible, compliant, small. You have that ma-down look. Victoria's voice carried to every corner. Sing us something soulful. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. People looked at their plates, on their phones, anywhere but at Marcus. Ma'am, I'm working. Perhaps the scheduled I'm paying for this event. Victoria cut him off. You're paid to serve, so serve me a song. The head manager appeared white. 56. 20 years of institutional cowardice in his spine. Marcus, perhaps just one song to keep the client happy. The trap snapped shut around him. Marcus's mother, Street, Vincent's Hospital, room 412, stage 3. The insurance through this job was the only thing keeping the treatment going. Lose the job, lose the insurance. Lose the insurance, lose her. Unless you can't sing. Victoria tilted her head, mock concern perfectly performed. Was I wrong about your people's natural gifts? The racial coding hung in the air like smoke. Everyone heard it. No one acknowledged it. Marcus looked around the room. 200 faces. Some were embarrassed. Some were entertained. None helpful. In the back corner, an elderly black woman, 78, pearls at her throat, eyes sharp with recognition, watched him with something that looked like sorrow. She'd been here before. Different decade, same script. Dorothy Williams knew exactly what was happening. She'd lived it in 1965 when they told her opera wasn't for her kind. Marcus's hand went to his vest pocket. The business card from Joanna Carter felt like a talisman. He made a choice. I'll sing. His voice was quiet, steady. But I choose the song. Victoria clapped, delighted. Of course, something urban. Marcus looked directly at her for the first time all night. Opera. The word landed like a stone in still water. Victoria's smile froze. Then she laughed. Genuine surprise mixed with dismissive amusement. Opera. You opera. The room went very, very quiet. Marcus closed his eyes. 3 seconds of silence stretched like hours. His mother's voice came to him bone deep. Baby, they can make you serve, but they can't make you small. He was 8 years old in the church choir, her face glowing in the front pew. 22 at Juilliard, watching the audition panel's skepticism melt within 4 measures. 29 at the Metropolitan Opera offices, reading rejection disguised as words like artistic profile when they meant his skin was wrong. Every closed door, every role given to someone lighter. Everyone was surprised when he could read music. Marcus opened his eyes. The fear was gone. Something ancient and unbreakable replaced it. The refusal to disappear that his ancestors passed down through spirituals and survival. His hand touched his vest pocket, not to pull out Joanna Carter's business card, but to feel it. Show them who you are. I'll need the pianist. The Russian accompanist, 63, Moscow Conservatory trained, looked up with sudden interest. Do you know Puccini's Nessun Dorma? The pianist's eyebrows rose. Of course. But then you know what it means. A slight smile. He did know. None shall sleep. The area of an exiled prince facing an impossible riddle. The final high B that separated pretenders from masters. Victoria leaned back, phone out, ready to record what she thought would be shareable humiliation. Her friends giggled. This would be hilarious. But Dorothy Williams, the elderly black woman in the back corner, sat forward, hands gripping her purse. She recognized this moment when someone decided dignity mattered more than safety. At the press table, James Rothstein, New York Times music critic, lowered his phone and reached for his notebook instead. Something in how Marcus shed his serving jacket and stood center floor with no microphone and no apology demanded different attention. The pianist played the opening notes. Marcus inhaled intercostal expansion, the breath of someone trained for this his entire life. And then he began. The first note left Marcus's body like a prayer made audible. Nissen Dorma. None shall sleep. His voice, rich, dark, impossibly controlled, filled the Beaumont Club ballroom with the kind of sound that doesn't ask for attention. It commands it. Victoria's smirk began its slow death. The room's oxygen disappeared. Conversations died mid-syllable. A socialite's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips and stayed there, forgotten. Phones lowered. The young waiter who'd been clearing dessert plates in the corner stood frozen, dish towel in hand, mouth open. This wasn't karaoke. This wasn't even good. This was something else entirely. Marcus's voice revealed technical mastery that didn't happen by accident. Squillo. The ping in the tone that cuts through full orchestras without amplification. Paho. The seamless blending of chest voice into head voice that lesser singers spend careers failing to achieve. Chiaroscuro. The perfect balance of brightness and darkness in the timbre that makes Italian opera shimmer. The Russian pianist's eyes went wide. His playing shifted from accompaniment to collaboration, leaning into the phrasing with sudden reverence. At the press table, James Rothstein scribbled frantically, spinto tenor, full lyric weight. Where the hell has he been? Marcus sang, of the exiled prince's determination. Dilea, oh note, vanish, oh night. The years of invisibility, of serving people who didn't see him, of talent buried under survival, all of it poured into the line. Trontate stel set you stars. The system that kept him washing dishes when he should have been on stages. The rejection letters. The not quite right for our aesthetic conversations. The slow murder of being told your gift doesn't matter because your face is wrong. Victoria's phone slipped in her hand. She caught it barely, but her fingers had gone numb. The recording app still ran, but she'd stopped watching the screen. Her eyes were locked on Marcus, and for the first time in 50 years of getting everything she wanted, Victoria Ashford was experiencing something unfamiliar. Irrelevance. Her husband turned to her, confused. Did you know he could? She didn't answer. Couldn't. Across the room, Dorothy Williams pressed a handkerchief to her eyes. She'd been denied a Metropolitan Opera audition in 1965. They told her opera was European art and suggested she try gospel instead. She'd spent 53 years wondering what her voice might have become if they'd let her try. Now she was watching her younger self get a second chance. The young busboy, Miguel, 19, 2 jobs and community college, stood transfixed. He'd grown up believing classical music was for other people, people with money, people who looked different. But Marcus looked like his older brother. Sounded like power Miguel didn't know was possible for someone like them. The aria was built. Marcus's body showed absolute technical control. Feet planted, core engaged, throat open, but tears streamed down his face. This wasn't a performance. This was an exorcism. He reached the climactic phrase "Mi ostero uso in me." But my secret is locked within me. The secret he'd carried through years of code switching and bowing and saying yes ma'am to people who treated him like furniture. The secret was that he was as good as anyone who'd ever stood on the Metropolitan Opera stage. And the only thing that had kept him off it was a system that valued whiteness over excellence. Then came the high B. Vincentro, I will win. The note not just hit but sustained, swelled, dominated, lasted 8 full seconds. Technically exceptional. Most professionals held it for 4. Pavarotti had made it legendary at 6. Marcus held it for 8. The sound vibrated through crystal glasses. A chandelier prism caught light and threw rainbows across his face. His body was in absolute control, but the tears kept coming because control and feeling weren't opposites. They were the same thing. This was what it meant to be seen. Really seen. Not as a waiter or a token or a well-spoken surprise. As an artist who'd earned every second of this moment, the note released into the final phrase. Marcus returned to chest voice for the closing declaration. Vincero, 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 I will win. I will win. I will win. Each repetition was both defiance and prayer. A promise to himself, to his mother, to every black singer who'd been told opera wasn't for them. The final note dissolved into absolute silence. No one breathed. Marcus stood, chest heaving, eyes closed, face wet with tears he hadn't known he was crying. Victoria sat pale and frozen. Her mouth had fallen open. She looked like she'd just watched her own irrelevance materialize in front of 200 witnesses. The silence held for 5 seconds. 10-15. Then Dorothy Williams began to clap, slow, deliberate, defiant. The sound echoed in the stillness like shots fired. Elena and the kitchen staff joined next class solidarity, witnessing one of their own revealing what he'd been forced to hide. The pianist stood and applauded. Years of playing for oligarchs and dictators, making this moment feel like absolution. Then half the room erupted. Couldn't help it. What they just heard wasn't something you could deny, even if you wanted to. James Rothstein was on his feet shouting, "Brava! Bravissimo!" The professional validation that this wasn't just good, this was world class. But Victoria did not clap. Neither did her inner circle 3 women, whose wealth insulated them from ever having to acknowledge being wrong. Neither did the head manager, who stood near the kitchen doors, looking like he'd just watched his carefully maintained order collapse. Marcus opened his eyes. The applause washed over him, but he was looking at Victoria. Her face had gone from flushed to bloodless. Her hands gripped the table edge. She'd wanted him to perform like a circus animal. Instead, he'd revealed her as exactly what she was, someone whose only power was money, and money couldn't buy what he had. In the back corner, Dorothy held up her phone. She'd been recording. The video was already uploaded to Facebook before the applause ended because she knew had lived through enough to know that powerful people don't forgive being made to feel small. And she was right. As the crowd surrounded Marcus, pressing business cards into his hands, asking where they could hear him again, Victoria Ashford stood and walked toward the private lounge. Her assistant followed, already on the phone. Through the glass door, Marcus could see her gesturing, sharp and angry, pointing. The applause continued, but something cold settled in Marcus's stomach. He'd just won the battle. The war was about to begin. 24 hours changed everything. Marcus stood in his apartment, 1 room, Murphy bed, water stain on the ceiling, staring at his phone like it might explain how victory turned to ash overnight. The article James Rothstein had promised wasn't there. Not in the New York Times, not anywhere. His phone buzzed. Rothstein's name. Marcus, I'm so sorry. The critic's voice was tight with frustration. My editor killed it, said it wasn't newsworthy. I pushed back. I showed him the video, the response. He said the paper can't afford to alienate certain donors right now. Ashford family donors. Silence. Then I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Marcus ended the call, checked his email. Dear Mr. Hayes, due to your unprofessional conduct during a private event, your employment with Beaumont Catering Services is terminated effective immediately. His other 2 part-time jobs, sound tech at Lincoln Center, coat check at the Carroll Hotel, sent identical emails within the hour. Both venues where the Ashford Foundation made substantial annual donations. The pattern was surgical, precise, personal. His agent, a decent guy who booked him session work when he could call 40 minutes later. Marcus, what the hell happened? I got a call saying you're difficult to work with. What does that even mean? It means I made someone powerful look stupid. Jesus, can you fix it? I don't know how. His agent went quiet. Then I have to drop you. I'm sorry. I can't afford to be associated with whatever this is. By noon, Marcus's phone showed 6 missed calls from St. Vincent's Hospital billing department. He called back. Mr. Hayes, your insurance shows as terminated as of this morning. Your mother's treatment authorization has been revoked. Without immediate payment of $17,000, we'll have to transition her to palliative care only. The floor tilted under Marcus's feet. How long do I have? 48 hours. He sat on the edge of his bed, hands shaking. The video Dorothy had posted 4,000 shares. 12,000 comments, all of them supportive, felt like it belonged to a different universe. Online support didn't pay for chemo. An article appeared on a gossip website that afternoon. No byline, pure poison, entitled "Waiter Ruins Billionaire's Birthday." Sources say Marcus Hayes, 34, abandoned his duties at Victoria Ashford's intimate celebration to stage an unprovoked performance that left guests uncomfortable and the evening disrupted. He was aggressive, one attendee reported. It felt like he was trying to humiliate her. The video Dorothy had posted disappeared from Facebook an hour later. Copyright claim, Ashford Media Holdings. Marcus tried to find other uploads. Gone, taken down, scrubbed. By evening, the only evidence the performance had happened was in people's memories, and memories were easy to revise when money was involved. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Hello. I hope you enjoyed your little moment, Marcus." Victoria's voice was silk over steel. "Was it worth it?" His hand tightened on the phone. "You'll never work in this city again. I've made sure of it." She paused, let it land. "And your mother?" "Well, I hear St. Vincent has excellent palliative care. Very affordable." The cruelty was so casual it took his breath away. "Why?" Marcus's voice was raw. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you forgot your place. And when people like you forget, people like me have to remind them." Another pause. "Consider this your reminder." The line went dead. Marcus sat in the dark. No job, no insurance, no money. 48 hours until they stopped trying to save his mother's life. He could apologize, could call Victoria, gravel, beg for mercy. Maybe she'd find that entertaining enough to let him work again. The business card from Joanna Carter sat on his counter. 6 months of accumulated coffee stains making the edges soft. He picked up his phone. She answered on the second ring. "Marcus, I saw Dorothy's video before it got taken down. I made some calls." Her voice had the energy of someone who'd been waiting for this. "Meet me tomorrow, Metropolitan Opera House noon. And bring that anger. We're going to need it." "What calls?" "The kind that makes people like Victoria Ashford nervous." "See you tomorrow." She hung up before he could ask what that meant. For the first time in 24 hours, Marcus felt something other than despair. It wasn't hope exactly. It was colder than that, sharper. It was the decision to fight back. The Metropolitan Opera House at noon felt like stepping into a cathedral built for sound. Marcus walked through the grand lobby, past the Chagall murals, his sneakers squeaking on marble that cost more per square foot than his monthly rent. He'd been here before as an understudy 3 years ago, before budget cuts eliminated his position, before restructuring that somehow only restructured people who looked like him out of permanent roles. Joanna Carter waited in her office, the door open. 47, sharpied, with the particular intensity of someone who'd fought every inch of her career and remembered every battle. She wasn't alone. James Rothstein sat in the corner, laptop open. "My editor killed the piece," the critic said before Marcus could ask. "So I sold it to the Atlantic instead. It publishes in 72 hours. Marcus blinked. "What title?" The voice they tried to silence. "How One Billionaire's Ego Exposed Opera's Race Problem." James turned his screen around. The draft was already written, polished, and devastating. "I've been documenting this industry's exclusion for years. You just gave me the proof I needed." Joanna leaned forward. "Victoria Ashford made 2 mistakes. First, she humiliated you publicly. Second, she forgot that art has power that money can't control." "She's already destroyed me," Marcus said quietly. "I have 48 hours before my mother's treatment stops, which is why we're doing this now." Joanna slid a folder across her desk. "I'm hosting an emergency showcase. Suppressed voices right here. Free admission. You're headlining 72 hours from now." Marcus stared at the folder. Inside, contracts, press releases, a performance slot at the Metropolitan Opera House. "Victoria will try to stop it. She'll try." Joanna's smile was thin and dangerous. "But she doesn't control the board. Not yet. And I've been on this board for 8 years preparing for a fight exactly like this. What if it gets worse before it gets better?" "It will," James said bluntly. "She's going to come after all of us. But here's what she doesn't know. Dorothy's video went viral before it got taken down. 12 million views. TikTok, Twitter, everywhere. People are already asking where you are. The internet doesn't forget Marcus, and it really doesn't like bullies. Joanna pulled up her phone, a GoFundMe page. Marcus hadn't created it, didn't know who had showed $480,000 raised in 18 hours. Help Marcus Hayes' mother get treatment. The number kept climbing as they watched. Marcus's throat tightened. I don't understand. You showed them something real. Dorothy's voice came from the doorway. She stood there, elegant and determined. 20 former Beaumont Club staff members behind her. Now we show them it wasn't an accident. We show them this is war. Victoria Ashford didn't accept defeat. She engineered reversals. 48 hours before the showcase, the Ashford Foundation's lawyers sent a letter to the Metropolitan Opera Board. $15 million in pledged funding money already promised for renovations, education programs, youth outreach would be withdrawn immediately if the unauthorized event featuring Mr. Hayes proceeds. The board met in an emergency session at 8 a.m. 4 members old money. Legacy donors, people whose families had boxes at the Met since 1883, voted to cancel. $15 million is $15 million. Is one tenor worth that? 3 members, a tech entrepreneur, a civil rights attorney, a Latina philanthropist, threatened to resign if Joanna backed down. If we cave to this, we're admitting money matters more than art. The vote deadlocked 4-3. The showcase remained scheduled, but barely. Victoria's second attack came through her legal team. Marcus received a cease and desist at his apartment door, HANDD delivered by a process server who looked apologetic about the whole thing. Mr. Hayes is hereby ordered to cease all defamatory statements regarding Ms. Victoria Ashford. His unprovoked disruption of her private event constitutes harassment. He is liable for damages to her reputation in the amount of $50,000. Public apology required within 24 hours or legal action will proceed. The letter was designed to do one thing, make him too afraid to perform. Marcus called Joanna. His voice was flat. She's suing me for $50,000. Ignore it. It's a bluff. I don't have money for a lawyer to find out if it's a bluff. Joanna paused. James's partner is a civil rights attorney. She's reviewing it now. Marcus, this is what Victoria does. She makes you think you're alone. You're not. But Marcus felt alone when his mother's hospice called an hour later. Mr. Hayes, we've received several anonymous calls questioning your character. Someone suggested you might be exploiting your mother's condition for financial gain. We're required to investigate. Investigate what? Marcus's hands shook. Who's calling you? The calls were anonymous. I'm sorry. We have to follow protocol. Protocol meant delays. Delays meant his mother went days without proper medication while administrators covered themselves. Victoria was weaponizing bureaucracy itself. By evening, gossip sites ran coordinated stories. Waiter's opera stunt was a publicity scam for GoFundMe. Marcus Hayes, entitled or exploited. The article cited anonymous sources close to the Beaumont Club describing him as aggressive, unstable, looking for a payday. His past was excavated and reframed. Student loans became financial desperation. His multiple jobs became inability to hold steady employment. His Juilliard degree became elite education he's now weaponizing for sympathy. The smear was sophisticated, multi-platform, relentless. 24 hours before the showcase, Marcus sat alone in the Met's rehearsal space. He was supposed to be warming up. Instead, he stared at his phone, watching his character dissolve in real time across social media. His throat felt closed. When he tried to sing, just a simple scale, nothing came out but air. Joanna found him there, head in his hands. She's winning, Marcus said. She thinks she is. My mother's dying. I'm about to be homeless. I can't even make a sound right now, Joanna. What am I supposed to do tomorrow? Before Joanna could answer, voices filled the hallway. The door opened. 30 people filed in wearing Beaumont Club server uniforms. Elena led them. Behind her, the kitchen staff, the valet, coat check attendants, bartenders, every person of color Victoria had employed and discarded over 8 years. She fired all of us. Elena said, everyone who applauded you that night, called it organizational restructuring. An older black man, security guard uniform pressed and perfect, stepped forward. She accused me of theft when I asked for overtime pay. I have kids. I kept quiet because I couldn't afford not to. A young Asian woman, kitchen staff, she touched me. When I pulled away, I was fired for being unprofessional. One by one, they shared stories. A pattern emerged. 8 years of systematic cruelty, discrimination, harassment. Victoria hadn't just hurt Marcus. He was simply the first one to have a public platform when she struck. "We have nothing left to lose," Elena said. "So, we're here. Whatever you need." The door opened again. A young woman in professional attire, South Asian, late 20s, walked in holding a banker's box. "My name is Priya Kapoor. I was Victoria's personal assistant for 4 years." She set the box on the piano. "This is everything. Emails, recordings, videos, 8 years of documentation. I'm done being complicit." James Rothstein stood. This just became a federal discrimination case. Marcus looked at the 30 faces surrounding him. People who'd risked everything by showing up. His voice came back, quiet but steady. "Then let's make sure she hears us." The movement built in hours, not days. Miguel, the 19-year-old busboy who'd watched Marcus sing, posted a TikTok at midnight. Just him, phone camera, raw emotion. "This is what happened when my coworker sang opera and a billionaire tried to destroy him for it." The video hit 12 million views by morning. Comments flooded in. "Find this man. Why aren't labels signing him? This is racism, plain and simple. I'm flying to New York for this showcase." The #number sign "Let Him Sing" trended worldwide by 6 a.m. at 9 a.m. James Rothstein's article was published in The Atlantic, not the version his editor had killed, the expanded one with Priya's emails embedded as exhibits. The voice they tried to silence, how one billionaire's ego exposed opera's race problem. The piece was surgical. It named names, included Victoria's threatening messages to the opera board. Quoted her email, "Don't support that black singer. He's probably just seeking attention anyway." By 10 a.m., the Ashford Foundation's donor list began fracturing. 40% of contributors sent letters threatening to withdraw if Victoria remained on the board. "This is not the philanthropy we want our names associated with." Victoria's tech company stock dropped 8% in morning trading. At 11 a.m., the law firm handling her cease and desist issued a public statement. "We were unaware of the full context of this matter and have withdrawn from representation." Translation: bad PR, sinking ship, every lawyer for themselves. The news cycle was brutal and fast. CNN picked it up. Viral opera singer faces billionaire's wrath. MSNBC ran a segment. The BBC called it America's reckoning with class and race in high culture. By noon, the Metropolitan Opera's ticketing system crashed. 50,000 people are trying to register for a showcase with 400 seats. Joanna made an executive decision. Free live stream. Screens in Lincoln Center Plaza for overflow crowds. Simultaneous broadcasts in Chicago, Los Angeles, London. This was no longer a performance. It was a referendum. 3 Broadway performers, a Tony-winning black soprano, a celebrated Latino baritone, a white tenor using his privilege as amplification, volunteered to perform in solidarity. "If you're making space for suppressed voices, we want to be part of it." The coalition expanded by the hour. A union representative from Hospitality Workers Local 6 showed up at the Met with legal support for the 30 fired Beaumont staff members. "This is textbook retaliation. We're filing a class action." Kesha Williams, James Rothstein's partner, the civil rights attorney who'd been CC'd on every email, held a press conference on the Met steps at 2 p.m. Victoria Ashford has engaged in a pattern of racial discrimination spanning 8 years, affecting 47 documented victims. "We are filing suit in federal court. This isn't about one performance. This is about systemic abuse of power." Behind her, the 47 plaintiffs stood in rows. Servers, kitchen staff, security guards, valet, people Victoria had treated as invisible, now refusing to disappear. Dorothy Williams stood at the microphone next, 78 years old and unshakable. "In 1965, they told me opera wasn't for my kind. I believed them. I spent 53 years wondering what I could have been. Marcus reminded me and everyone watching that excellence doesn't have a color. It just has a voice." Her voice cracked. "And we're done being silent." The press conference footage went viral within minutes. Inside the Met, Marcus stood in the empty theater, looking at the stage he'd dreamed of since childhood. Around him, his coalition prepared. Elena coordinated logistics. Miguel managed social media. Priya reviewed documentation with Kesha Williams. The Beaumont staff rehearsed their testimonies. James Rothstein fielded media requests. 63 outlets wanted interviews. The Russian pianist who'd accompanied Nissan Dorma arrived carrying sheet music. I have played for dictators who paid me well. Tonight I play for free for something that matters. Joanna found Marcus in the wings 2 hours before curtain. She's going to try something. Marcus said quietly. She won't let this happen without a fight. I know. Priya warned us. Victoria's been silent all day. That's not like her. She's planning something. Marcus's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He didn't answer. It buzzed again. Text message. Enjoy your little moment. It won't last. Victoria. Marcus showed Joanna. She read it and handed the phone back. Let her come. We have something she doesn't. What's that? The truth. And 50,000 witnesses. Outside, crowds began gathering in Lincoln Center Plaza. People held signs. Art over money. We hear you, Marcus. Number sign. Let him sing. The showcase was 2 hours away. The reckoning had already begun. 5 minutes before Marcus's scheduled performance, Victoria Ashford walked through the Metropolitan Opera House doors. Designer suit, full makeup. The camera crew behind her is like an entourage of documentarians. She'd brought her own press. 400 people inside the venue went silent. Outside, the live stream captured it. 200,000 viewers watching in real time as she strode down the center aisle like she owned the building, which her posture suggested she basically did. $30 million in family donations over 3 generations bought a certain confidence. Security moved toward her. Joanna Carter raised a hand. Let her come. Victoria reached the front, 5 rows from the stage. She didn't sit. I'd like to speak. Her voice carried without amplification. Years of commanding boardrooms made projection effortless. Joanna stood from her seat in the orchestra section. Ms. Ashford, this is not your event. It is when my family's money built half of this building. Victoria held up printed documents. I have affidavit from staff members, real staff testifying to Mr. Hayes's unprofessional conduct. He abandoned his duties, created a disruption. This entire spectacle is built on lies. She held up photos. He was hired to serve. Instead, he turned my private celebration into a circus for his own advancement. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some are uncertain, some are angry. The camera phones came out, everyone recording, everyone a witness. Marcus stood backstage listening through the monitor. His hands shook. Elena gripped his shoulder. Don't let her control this. But Victoria was just getting started. She turned to face the audience, playing to the crowd and the cameras. I'm here to set the record straight. These allegations against me are defamatory. I've spent my life supporting the arts. I've donated millions. You've spent your life buying silence. Priya Kapoor stood from her seat in the 3rd row. Victoria's former assistant, the woman who'd organized her schedules and covered her cruelties for 4 years, walked to the aisle. I have the recordings, Victoria. Every conversation, every order you gave me to handle staff who inconvenienced you. 8 years of documentation. Victoria's face went rigid. You signed an NDA. NDAs don't cover criminal behavior. Kesha Williams rose from her seat, attorney credentials visible, and systematic discrimination as a federal crime. We filed 2 hours ago 47 plaintiffs. Victoria's camera crew shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the narrative they'd been hired to film. This is absurd. Victoria's voice climbed. I came here in good faith. No. Marcus's voice cut through from the stage entrance. He walked out. No introduction, no announcement, just stepped into the light. The crowd erupted applause, cheers, a few shouts of support. Victoria stood 10 feet away, trapped between the stage and the audience. Marcus looked at her directly for the first time since the Beaumont Club. You told me to sing, so I will, but not for you. For everyone you tried to silence. He turned to the pianist. Not the scheduled piece. Something different. Do you know Old Man River? The Russian pianist's eyes widened. He nodded slowly, understanding immediately. Old Man River, Paul Robeson's legacy, the song of black endurance, resistance, survival. Written for a musical, but transformed by Robeson into something more dangerous, coded protest that white audiences applauded without understanding they were hearing their own indictment. Victoria realized too late she should leave, but the crowd blocked the aisles. The cameras were rolling. Walking out now would look like retreat. She was trapped by her own need to control the narrative. The pianist played the opening chords. Deep, mournful, inevitable as a river's current. Marcus sang, not the virtuosic fireworks of Nessun Dorma. This was something older, heavier, more dangerous. To that barge, lift that bale. The labor, the burden placed on backs that carried economies they'd never benefit from. I get weary and sick of trying. The exhaustion of performing humanity for people who saw you as a function, not person. But Old Man River, he just keeps rolling along. The survival, the refusal to disappear despite everything designed to erase you. His voice filled the space with something beyond technique. This was the truth made audible. Every year of being, overlooked, underestimated, told to be grateful for crumbs. All of it poured into the phrases. Victoria stood frozen. She couldn't look away, couldn't move. The cameras captured her face, lips pressed tight, eyes wide, the careful composure cracking like ice over deep water. Dorothy Williams stood in the front row, her powerful mezzo-soprano joined on the second verse. Then the Tony-winning soprano from Broadway. Then the Latino baritone. Then the 30 Beaumont staff members, servers, kitchen workers, valets stood and sang, he just keeps rolling along. 400 voices joined. Not trained voices, not perfect voices, just human voices refusing to stay quiet. The sound became something larger than music. It became testimony, became a witness, became the thing Victoria Ashford had spent 50 years trying to prevent. People she considered beneath her, standing as equals, no longer asking for permission to exist. She stood alone in the center aisle, surrounded by a river of sound she couldn't control, couldn't stop, couldn't buy her way out of. The cameras captured everything, her trembling hands, the tears she was too proud to let fall. The moment when power learned it had limits. When the final note faded, the silence held for 3 seconds. Then the building erupted. Victoria turned and walked out. No statement, no defense, just walked through the doors into the plaza where 5,000 people watched on screens where the whole thing was being streamed to 200,000 viewers worldwide. There was nowhere left to hide. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes and 40 seconds. People wept openly. Strangers embraced. The live stream comments moved too fast to read. Just an endless scroll of hearts and fire emojis and people typing in all caps about what they'd just witnessed. Marcus stood center stage, drained, his mother's face filling his mind. She was watching from her hospital bed. Nurses had told him they'd set up a tablet so she could see. Joanna Carter took the microphone. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. Marcus Hayes is now a resident artist at the Metropolitan Opera, full scholarship, and his mother's medical care is covered completely by the opera's health care fund for the next 5 years. The crowd erupted again. Marcus's knees nearly gave out. 5 years his mother would live. Outside in Lincoln Center Plaza, the 5,000 gathered let out a roar that echoed off the buildings. The GoFundMe started by people Marcus had never met hit $1.2 million by the time he left the stage. More money than he'd seen in his lifetime. Enough to secure his mother's future beyond what any institution could promise. But the reckoning didn't stop there. Within a week, Victoria Ashford's world collapsed with the methodical efficiency of institutions protecting themselves. The Ashford Foundation board voted 8-2 to remove her as chair. The press release was clinical. The board has decided to pursue leadership more aligned with our values of inclusion and equity. Her tech company's board demanded resignation to protect shareholder value and company reputation. She was given 72 hours. She took 71. 3 major charities returned her donations publicly. The Metropolitan Museum, the New York Public Library, Lincoln Center itself. Each statement is careful, lawyered, but clear. After reviewing recent events, we've determined these funds are incompatible with our institutional values. The federal discrimination case moved forward. 47 plaintiffs. Kesha Williams led a legal team that included 3 firms working pro bono because the case was too high profile to lose. The evidence was overwhelming. Priya's recordings, 8 years of emails, testimony from workers who'd finally found safety in numbers. Victoria's husband filed for divorce on day 6. Court documents leaked. He'd been documenting her behavior for years, terrified to act. The settlement gave him primary custody of their 2 children and a restraining order. The Beaumont Club underwent complete restructuring. The manager who enabled Victoria was terminated. All fired staff were reinstated with back pay and formal apologies. Elena was promoted to Director of Operations with authority to implement new policies, mandatory bias training, anonymous reporting systems, diverse hiring committees with actual power. The club issued a public statement that made headlines. "We failed our staff. We prioritized wealth over dignity. That ends now." 3 other private clubs in Manhattan quietly adopted similar policies, terrified they'd be next. The Metropolitan Opera didn't stop with Marcus. Joanna Carter launched Suppressed Voices, an annual showcase for classical artists of color who'd been systematically excluded. 10 full scholarships to Juilliard for BIPOX opera students funded by redirecting money that would have gone to the Ashford Wing renovation. 4 major international opera houses, Milan, Vienna, London, Sydney, adopted similar programs within months. Marcus's story had forced a reckoning the industry couldn't ignore. Opera News published an exposé, "The Voices We Buried, A Century of Racial Gatekeeping in Classical Music." 3 prominent black singers came forward with their own stories. Decades of being told they weren't right for roles, that their sound didn't fit, that maybe gospel or R&B would be more appropriate. The industry couldn't pretend anymore. 6 months after the showcase, Marcus stood backstage at the Met in a costume, not a server's tuxedo, a costume preparing for opening night of La Boheme. He was playing Ralphalo, the lead. His mother sat front row, cancer in remission, wearing the dress she'd bought for his Juilliard graduation and never got to wear to his professional debut until now. Beside her, Dorothy Williams, who'd waited 53 years to see someone like her succeed. Miguel enrolled in Juilliard's preparatory program, eyes wide with possibility he hadn't known existed. Elena, Priya, James, Kesha, the people who'd refused to let him disappear. 3 seats in the front row remained empty. The program noted they were reserved for the voices we lost before they could sing, a reminder, a promise. As the curtain rose, Marcus caught his reflection in the stage mirror. Not a waiter, not a token, not a surprise. An artist who'd earned every second of this moment in a system that was finally slowly, painfully beginning to change. The orchestra began. Marcus sang and the world listened. 6 months later, Marcus stood by the stage door after a Saturday matinee, still in costume, signing play bills. A small hand tugged his sleeve. A black boy, maybe 8 years old, clutched a wrinkled program. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus knelt. "Anything. My teacher said opera isn't for kids like me. That I should try other music. Is that true?" Marcus took the boy's program and wrote his phone number on it. "Here's what's true. Your voice belongs to you, not to teachers, not to people with money. Nobody gets to decide what you do with your gift except you." He handed it back. "When you're ready, call me." The boy nodded, tears in his eyes, clutching the program like a lifeline. His mother stood behind him, crying, hand over mouth, watching her son hold the possibility he hadn't known existed. Marcus thought about Victoria Ashford living in Switzerland now, reputation destroyed. She hadn't gone to prison, but she'd lost something more valuable. The power to make people invisible, and he'd gained something more valuable than fame, the knowledge that his voice had changed what was possible. So, here's the question. If you saw someone being humiliated for entertainment, would you applaud them or the person doing the humiliating? Think about it. Then watch this again. Go back to minute 3. Watch Victoria's assistant's face. She makes a decision right there. Most people miss it the first time. If this story made you feel something, share it. Not for algorithms. For the next person who needs to know their voice matters. For the kid being told they're not enough. For everyone forced to choose between dignity and survival. Because stories like this don't just entertain, they show what happens when people refuse to disappear. Subscribe to Hidden Turns for more stories where the underdog doesn't just survive.